So when you log into your TouchStone account, you're going to see account administration in the upper right-hand corner right here. If you don't see an account administration button, all that means is that you haven't been set up as an administrator. The administrators have access to the administration center, obviously, and they also have full access to everything inside of TouchStone. So usually if you're an employee on the line, you may not have access to this administration center, but it's still useful for you to kind of understand how the access is set up and what it means. So to access the administration center, you go up to the right-hand corner of the screen and just click the Account Admin button. This will take you to a list of users. So the user list appears right here in this box. What happens in the account administration area is that users are created, first of all. You're able to set access, which means what can these users do and see inside of TouchStone. And then you also create control panels here in the user center. In addition to the kind of adding and managing of users here, within account administration, right here above, you can access what we call the account settings. So I'm going to go over this toolbar row here, and then we'll get into kind of the heart of account administration. The user accounts right here will always take you back to what we're looking at now, so it will always show you the list of users. Account settings, which is right here, allows you to change the name on your account. The business name appears for whatever you added or created it as when the TouchStone account was created. So that's how this is populated. So you can go right here to edit or change that. Your address will normally appear here. Also your email address, you'll see mine here. But more importantly, down here at the bottom is how you can kind of adjust the look and feel of your TouchStone account. So here we have a header color selection. And the header is this area right here at the top. This is all called the header. So mine's white currently. So if I wanted to change it, I could just select this icon here, and I see kind of an array of colors, and I'd choose a color. And then you hit Update here at the bottom. And then you'll see this header color is changed. The text color, which is currently black, shows this toolbar right here to the right. So if I wanted to change the text color, it's the same idea. You just click it, choose a color, and then hit Update. And now you see the text color is changed. If you make the text color and the header color the same, then you're going to lose the text. So let me show you. And this happens to people. If I make them both white, and then I hit Update, you see it disappears. It's still there, but you can't see it because you've made it the same color. Those two areas are the same color. So all I have to do is go back and change it back to a color that's visible. When you first get your TouchStone account, this little flag is always selected, and it's display default colors. So the default colors within TouchStone are this green. So if you want to adjust your header and text color, then you need to uncheck this box that says display default colors. And then Update, and then it'll show whatever colors you've selected. You can also upload your logo. And so I have a logo right here in the left-hand corner. That's where the logo will appear. All you do to upload the logo is you just hit Choose File right here. Then you find your logo on your desktop and hit Open. And then when you save it or hit Update, the logo will appear. The logo will only appear if you have this box selected that says Display Logo. So you'll see if I uncheck that box, then you don't see my logo here. But when I do check it, then the logo appears. So make sure the logo box is checked. You can also display your company name. So what that does is it's going to take this name that's in this field right here, and it's going to display it next to the logo. Or if you don't have a logo, then the company name will just display over here. So with our logo here, it's redundant to have them twice because the name is in the logo in our example. So if you uploaded a logo and your name's in it, you may want to uncheck this box, display company name, and then the company name will go away. So it's kind of nice if you upload your logo to then have the header color blend with the logo. So if I change this header color again, you'll see more what I mean. So our logo kind of has a white background here. So I would choose a white header color because then it kind of blends in and looks nice. If you don't do that, then you get this kind of logo block feel. So choose a header color that kind of blends with your logo if you're going to upload your logo. It's nice to personalize your TouchStone account to the degree that you're allowed to here, just so when your employees log in and you see it, it kind of looks like your own. It looks like, you know, it belongs to you. Next to account settings, we have an upgrade account button. So every TouchStone account comes with 10 users with the basic subscription. And past that, if you want to upgrade your account or add more users, then you go to this upgrade account button. You fill in the amount of users that you want, and then you hit update. So this has fees next for, you know, per user price when you upgrade your users. But when you upgrade, or if you want to upgrade, always contact us because we give discounts for the users just quite readily, because the more people or employees you have using TouchStone, logging in, accessing processes, building processes, the more successful you're going to be. So we really want to partner with you on this and make it economical for you to add enough users that you can potentially add all of your employees as users to TouchStone. So the purpose of having a user in TouchStone is that that employee, that specific person, can log in with their own username and password. And then that account becomes unique to them, to how their access has been established. So every user that logs in with their own unique username and password will have a certain set of access permissions that have been defined here. They will also have access to a control panel, which is where they would go to use processes and manage them. And everything that they see and everything that they complete and use in their control panel is unique to them. So nobody else sees it except for them. So you may have, you know, 5 salespeople, for example, and they may have all have access to the same processes on the salesperson's job description. But when John goes in to complete his checklist, that's all unique to John. And when Bob goes in to complete his, it's all unique to him. They can't see each other's. The only person other than the user themselves that can see what they're completing is their manager, the one above them on the org chart. So what this does is it gives security, first of all. It gives this ability to track employees' work separately. And it also gives you the flexibility and the ability to restrict access based on what you want that person to be able to see and do. Now, we don't care if you create a user and call it allemployees@allemployees.com and have everybody logging in with that. But what you're going to lose is the ability to restrict access by individual or even by position. And you'll also lose the ability to have those employees filling things out in the control panel and managers tracking training information and management information specific to that employee. So on the user list here, you'll see from this legend here what type of access the user's been given. So the key account holder is always at the top here, and it's designated with this yellow key. You can always edit the information of the key account holder if you would like. So anytime I select a user here, I'm going to see the details of that user. So here I can change the username and password. I can change the key account holder altogether and then just hit update here at the bottom, also the password. The key account holder, the only difference between the key account holder and an administrator like Mike here is that the key account holder is the only one who can customize the settings. So they would see this account settings button and upgrade the account. So to customize the header, the footer, the logo like we just talked about, or to upgrade the account, you need to be logged in as the key account holder to do that. Key account holders as well as administrators like Mike here are designated with the key, just different colors. Administrators have access to everything in TouchStone, including account administration. So what that means is that they will see everything inside of TouchStone. They'll go to the 4 functions org chart, they'll have access to it all. In addition, they'll have access to all the tools inside of every process, so the work plans, the checklists, they can delete processes, they can edit and change anything. So think of the administrative user kind of like an all-access user. So you want to reserve administrative rights to employees or individuals that are going to be managing TouchStone along with the owner of the account. They're going to be using everything in TouchStone and are kind of trusted to be able to access and change anything in TouchStone. Aside from being an administrator, the next level is called a user. And the users are always distinguished by this blue dot here that you'll see on the list. When an employee is a user, that means that their access is restricted to a certain degree. But there are different types of access that you can give that we'll go over here in a minute. So to add a user, you just click this new user button. The first thing you're going to be asked is what kind of user is it? Is it a user that you want to be able to restrict access, or is it an administrative user? So this can always be changed as well. Like if I select John here, I could go to user type and make him administrator with one click, and then I save it at the bottom. So once you've created a user with a certain user type, it doesn't mean you can't change it. So you choose a user type, you give it an email address. So you want to, this is autofilling, you want to give it an actual email address, which will become the username that they use to log in with. The reason you want it to be a valid email address is because if that user ever forgets their password, on the TouchStone login screen right here, they can go forget password and reset the password. But what happens is it sends a temporary password to this username. So if it's not a real email address, then the password recovery is not going to go anywhere. If you don't care about that reason, then you really could make it anything that you want. It just has to be an @something.com or .whatever extension. Anybody who has access to account administration can always go to a user on the user list, and then down here at the bottom, change the password. So just remember that too. If you have any users that can't log in and the password recovery, they can't figure that out or whatever, you can always log in as an administrator and update their passwords. In addition, you can update passwords if you don't want them to get in anymore. You can always delete the user, but you can change the password if you're an administrator. So choose the user type, put in an email address. I'm going to put one in like this. Then choose a password. Type it in twice, so you make sure you've typed in what you think you did. The first and the last names are the only required fields. All these other fields you can use or not to put in the employee's address if you like. You can put in a hire date if you want to. You can put their position title in. This is all kind of for your information. If you don't care about it, then you can leave that blank. And I hit Create User. It says I have errors. So once you create the user, then it's probably because this already exists, then that user will appear here on the user list. Once the user appears, you can select that user from the user list, and then you can go and set their access. So before we get there, this next icon allows you to delete users. It's pretty straightforward. So I hit Delete User. Hit the drop down, I see all my users that are available to delete. You can't delete the key account holder, but all the other users can be deleted. You choose the user you want to delete and you hit delete. Once you delete a user, it makes that user account available again to create. So if you have 10 users and then you delete one, then you've got another one you can add later. The only thing to remember about deleting a user is if they have had a control panel in the past and are completing things in the control panel, so they're completing checklists and forms and things like that, and you want to keep that information, you'll want to go and export it all. Export what you want to keep from the control panel, and then delete the user. Because if you just delete the user, then you're going to lose completed information if that's important. So let's go to John here on the user list. The profile button always gets you back to these details here. So user access, when I select that, now I'm on John here, and I know because it's highlighted, so I'm setting his user access. And I click that user access button. And now I'm seeing my organization chart in Simple View. So when you click user access, you're going to see your organization chart. TouchStone gives access by position on the org chart. So what we need to ask ourselves here is, what positions does John need to have access to? In other words, what processes does he need to have access to? So here on the org chart, if we give John access to the sales position here, that's giving him access to all these processes on this job description. So that's how TouchStone gives the access. It's by position on the org chart, which then gives that user access to all the processes that are on that job description. So if we go back here to account administration, I choose his name again. So now I'm looking at the org chart, and I would say, first of all, probably what positions does John fill? Which processes does he need to have access to? So let's say he's a salesperson. So I choose the sales box. Now I'm asked, what type of access or what type of permissions do you want him to have to this position? So he can have a read-only access, which would give him read-only access to the processes on the salesperson's job description. So what that means is he can read them, and he can go to the tools within each of those processes and read those and also print them. He can have edit access, which means he can now edit what exists. So any processes that are already on the salesperson's job description, any work plans, checklists, tools within those processes that already exist, he can now go and edit those. So he can change the text around. He can't add new things, and he can't delete anything, but he can edit what's there. Create access is the highest level of access next to being an administrator. And what create access would give John is the ability to not only access and read or edit and read the processes on this job description, but he can also create new processes. He can add more processes to this job description. He can go to those processes and add work plans and checklists and build things. He can create things. So let's give him read-only access to salesperson here, update. You'll notice here that on my chart, this appointment setter is underneath sales. So the sales people manage the appointment setters. That's what that means, or could mean, if that's how you interpret it. So what TouchStone does is it's automatically going to give John access to the position underneath, read-only. And the thought behind that is, if he manages this person, then he's going to need to have access to what they do. He's going to need to have permissions to view it and manage them with it, really. So TouchStone will default and automatically give him access. What's typical for a managerial position is for them to have create access, at least edit or create, for the positions underneath them. So you see I just changed it. Now he has create access to the appointment setter, as well as read access to his own position. So the reason you'll want to do this for subordinate positions is because the manager should be the one managing those processes. They should know them inside and out and be able to do them, but then also they should be innovating them, making them better. So now he's got create access to this appointment setter. Now let's give him access to marketing assistant. So let's say that in addition to being the lead salesperson and managing the appointment setter, sometimes John needs to fill in for the marketing assistant when they're not there. So he needs to have access to this position. So we'll give him read-only access to that. So you can give access to any position on the organization chart and these different types of access. So then let's give John, let's give him edit access to this position just for fun. So now you'll see he's got read for these two, create for this one, and edit for this one. So now let's log in as John so you can see what it looks like. My screen's frozen. Okay, it's not letting me log in. So what all the user does, I'm logging in with my own unique password here, or my John's username and password. I'm going to go back and remind myself what that is. So it's employee@sample.com. And then you put in their own unique password, if I can remember what it is. All right, Firefox is not letting me log in for some reason, so let's do this. I'm going to log out of and log in right here. So it's better when you log in to a TouchStone account twice to do it from different browsers. So that's why I'm logging out and logging back in with the same account. Okay, so now we're logged in as John. And you can see, I can see his name right here at the top, so I know I'm logged in as him. And then I go to the organization chart, and this is what it looks like. Everything else is grayed out because I didn't give him access to those things. Only the positions that I gave him some level of access to are illuminated. So when we choose salesperson, which he had read-only access for, you'll notice this whole toolbar up here is gone, and all you have is the printer icon. So here I can't edit or change anything. All I can do is read what's here. If I choose a process from the list, I can go to this process. All of these icons aren't here anymore as well. I can go and look at these work plans, and you can see I can only print. If we go back to the org chart, let's go to this position. So this one I gave him, I think I gave him create access for this, or edit access, sorry. So here I can click and change things, but I can't add anything new. And then lastly, we gave him create access for the appointment setter here. So here you can see I can add new processes right here and here. I can remove processes. And if I select this process, then I can go and edit and change and add new things to this process. If you go to the for functions list as a user, the only process, I can see the processes here, but the only ones I really have access to are the ones that are on the job descriptions that I have access to. All these others are grayed out. So even though this may be linked to the salesperson's job description where I have read-only access, and maybe this one is linked to appointment setters where I have create access, it doesn't matter. TouchStone knows. So when I go here, I'm just going to be able to read, and when I go here, I can edit and change this one. All right, and you also notice John does not, he's not an administrator, so this account administration button is not here. So the best way to kind of understand more about how the access works is to go and play around with it. So create a user, give different levels of access, and then kind of log in as that person and see what it looks like. So that is user access. User access is about what you want them to have access to and what type of access. This position now, let me just go here, is an administrator, right? I'm the key account holder. So if I go to user access here, you're going to get this message that says there's no reason to set access because this position has full access to everything. So that's just a reminder. All right, let's talk about setting control panels next. So the purpose of a control panel is for employees to be able to access and use their processes. So in a control panel, users get the ability to not only access and read things, but they can also use them. So to set a control panel, you go here, choose the user from the user list, make sure it's illuminated in orange so you know you're on that one, and then go to control panel. Again, you're going to see the organization chart. So I'm going to give myself a control panel, or you would give a user a control panel for the positions they fill. So it's slightly different than user access. User access, you would give them access to the positions they fill, but you may also give them access to other positions, like their subordinate positions, or positions they fill in for, or positions they just need to know. Here, you really only want to give a control panel for to someone to the position that they actually are accountable for. They're accountable for those processes. So I'm going to give myself a control panel here for salesperson. When you select that position from the org chart, you just have to answer one question. Is this a managerial position or is it a staff position? Does it manage other people or does it not? If it manages other people and you choose this manager position, TouchStone will give it a control panel for a managerial position, which gives that user what we call management review for the positions underneath them. So if I go back here, you'll see if I am the sales manager and I'm given a managerial control panel, then I would get management review for all these positions underneath me. Everybody who has a control panel for these positions, I would be able to see their work. I'd be able to see what they're completing and doing. So let's give me a control panel for manager, marketing, and sales. So I hit manager and then update. And then you see I've been given a managerial assignment for this position. And if we go here to the home screen, you'll see what that means. Here's the control panel, which appears right here into the control panel box. And then since I'm a manager and I've been given a managerial control panel, I see all these people in management review. So Sam and Mike and Mary and Bill have all been given control panels for the salesperson's job description. So they have their own usernames and passwords. They log in and they can complete things and do things in this control panel. And I, as their manager, can see them individually. I can see the work that each one of them is doing. So this goes back to the reason for why you want to create users. If all of these 4 people had one username and password for sales position, then I wouldn't see, as their manager, I couldn't see anything that was unique to all of them or particular to them. I would see everybody all together. And they would see each other's, which is a bit of a mess. And then because Bill and Bob here are appointment setters and they're underneath me on the org chart, I see their positions as well. So let's go back here to account administration. If I go to control panel, I remove this just by hitting remove assignment and update. And then I go back here to the home screen, this is what I see. I see nothing. So if you see nothing here, it's just because you haven't set up a control panel for yourself or for this user. Go back to account administration, choose my name, go control panel. This time let's give me a salesperson's job description, and I'll choose staff this time. So I'm saying this person doesn't manage anyone else, and I'll hit update. Now you'll see it appear in purple. If I go back to the home screen, you'll see I have a control panel for sales, but this whole area is not here because I didn't make this a managerial assignment. So let's go back. I'll choose my name again, go to control panel. Let's give me back this position called Manager of Marketing and Sales and choose Manager and update. Now I've got 2 control panels. I have one for the Manager of Marketing and Sales and one for Salesperson. This is something that's common if you've built a future organization chart, like we tell you to do in here. So you're looking into the future and you're saying, my business is growing. Unfortunately, I still have to do sales, but I'm also the sales manager. So I'm going to have 2 control panels. So anyone who fills 2 positions or 2 roles, hopefully temporarily until the business grows to the point it needs to be, where one person is in each box, then it might look like this. For the owners of a company, you might be the chairman of the board, you might be the president, you might be the manager of marketing and sales, and unfortunately a salesperson sometimes. So here's 4 control panels. Now if we go back, you'll see I've got 4 control panels here, plus management review for everything underneath me. So why this is kind of cool to do with the control panel is it helps it helps you compartmentalize things. So if you are in that situation where you're filling multiple roles on the chart, even if you're not the owner of the company, but you're still a manager, or you're two staff positions in different departments, this helps, because rather than just multitasking all over the and kind of being on overwhelm, you can maybe look at it in a little clearer way. You can say, no person has enough time in the day to do all 4 of these positions for 40 hours a week. I mean, clearly that is, impossible. But what you are being asked to do by filling all 4 of these roles is spend some time here, spend some time here, spend some time thinking like the chairman of the board, and then spend some time doing your president work. So just as a reminder, when I select these control panels, I'm seeing the work that I'm responsible for as the salesperson in this example. So here's where I would go to access those processes and use them. So I'm a salesperson generating referrals. I click this process. Now I can go and fill out checklists and forms and scripts and save them all back to TouchStone. Or I say to myself, 1 day a week I'm going to do my strategic work and really work on the business itself as the president, managing the key department heads, and also doing the work I need to do as president. So I choose this box, and now I see that work right in front of me, and I can work on the management philosophy, or I can develop this strategic target, or I can work on creating industry contacts. I can work on the budget, cash flow planning. So I'm doing the work inside of this, and it's reminding me of what I need to do. And then board of directors. Maybe I try to do this once a month, where I think, we're going to have a quarterly meeting. What do I need to do to get that meeting together? All right, let's go back here. So that's the control panel assignment. You just simply choose the name from the user list, go to control panel, and then select the control panels. All throughout account administration, there's these little help menus too. It kind of gives you like a further explanation of what's going on here. It can be quite useful in the, let's go here, in this section, because it kind of defines for you what read, edit, and create access is. So right here, it gives you these definitions. So this is just like a little quick help menu. You can also go to the user manual up here and see it. All right, so let's talk for a minute just about public processes. So this is the public process area. You can drag and drop here too if you didn't know. All of these pull up and pull down. I kind of like to see these, oops, I went too far. I kind of like to see these maybe in alphabetical order, or in some kind of workflow order, or alphabetical is usually right, because one process may relate to another, but generally here they're kind of their own subject area. What the public folder is about is it's a place where you can put processes that are company-wide information. So how TouchStone works regularly is that you take processes from here, from the 4 functions, and you link them to positions on the org chart who are accountable for them. So here you've got job descriptions built with the processes that each position is, or person in position is responsible for. Now you may have processes that multiple people do, not everybody, but more than one person. So managerial positions, this person may do performance review and training and managerial things, and this person may do the same things with different people. So they would have processes, the performance review process, say, linked to all 3 of these, anyone who is a manager. But this person doesn't need to have the performance review process because they don't do performance reviews. So there are situations where you have processes linked to more than one position. The public folder is different than that. The public folder is for processes that are everybody's accountability. Everybody needs to access and use them. Everybody needs to have this content. So to put a process in the public folder, all you do is go to that process on the 4 functions list, and then you fill in this box right here that says make process public and available to all users. Then you can see from the 4 functions list all the time, if the process is complete, you're going to see it as a little green check mark. If the process has not been completed yet, so I'm going to uncheck this box, you'll see it as a P. So processes that you want to put in the public folder are typically going to be HR things, so like new employee introduction and orientation. Every new employee goes through this, but there may be things in it that employees, once they've been hired, for years, may still want to access and use. Health and safety, that's kind of a company-wide thing, how to stay safe in the business environment, how to stay healthy while you're sitting at your desk all the time, things like that. Client satisfaction, this is a good one in the public folder, especially if not every department deals with clients, then maybe not, but in most businesses, every person can touch a client. The strategic target tracking, that's what this one is. So the president creates the strategic target, and then they kind of track your progress towards it, and maybe you want to keep those indicators so that everyone can see them. And they could be published quarterly, and so an employee wants to know, gee, how did we do last quarter? They could go here and see it. HR things like time off and vacation requests, that's a good one. So employees can go there to request a vacation and see how to do that. Systems innovation, that's a good one, how to make processes better. Company meetings, classes and workshops. So this can be kind of, this process can be a placeholder for content that's company-wide. So if you do like lunch and learns or trainings of some kind that all employees learn, and you could upload, that information or highlights from the workshop, and people can go there and see it. Employee handbook, that's another one that's good here. Usually you would have maybe 2 employee handbook processes, one for the HR person who is responsible for updating it and keeping it current, and then another one that's a PDF document of the manual itself, and so employees can go and look at it and access it whenever they need to. Any kind of HR forms where the employees are always saying, where's that form? How do I update my benefits? How do I do this? How do I do that? Those types of things are great to have in the public folder, because rather than managers being bothered with those kinds of questions, everyone knows it's always in TouchStone. So these processes are not necessarily linked to anyone's job description. They're in the public folder, available for everyone. When you do new employee training, all the employees need to be trained in the processes on their job description, but they would also be shown and trained the public processes so they know that they're there and what they're there for. When you select a process from the public folder, like this one, it opens it in the control panel view. So when a process is put in the public folder, it doesn't mean that everybody can go and edit and change it. They can't do any of that from the public folder. They can't do it from the control panel either. The only way to edit and change things is to have access to be able to do that, and then go through the 4 functions or through the job description to the process tools and do it. Here, I'm just seeing copies of what was created over here. So when a process is accessed from the public folder, it shows it in this completable or accessible view. I'm seeing copies of everything. So I could go here to this vacation and holiday guidelines list and kind of see what those are. I can go to the vacation request form itself and fill it out. So these fields are all live now. Once I fill all this out and I save it, it date and time stamps it. So I could then send a message to my manager and say, hey, I just requested a vacation. Would you go approve it for me? Or once it's saved, it can be exported or printed if it needs to be printed for whatever reason, and then it could be turned in. So all they're doing with the information from the public folder is reviewing it, using it. It can be reminded here by just looking at the work plan. How do you request a vacation, or what are the rules behind that? If there's policies, you can ask them to go and read the policy and then save it as evidence that they've read it. So I'm logged in as myself right here, so the same kind of access applies. I'm logged in as me with my own username and password. When I go to a public process, just like when I go to a process through my control panel, I'm filling it out unique to me. The only one who can see it is me and my manager. So that's true for the public processes as well. When Sam logs in, he'll see the same public processes, but when he goes to request a vacation, he doesn't see my stuff or anyone else's. He completes his own. So put processes in the public folder that are this company-wide information. I've also seen in the public folder people put just like resources. So you may have a process called Companywide Resources, or it can be department-specific if you want it to be. And it would, inside of it would just be things people need to know, things people are wondering about. This classes and workshops one I think is really great. It could be named whatever you want, but within that you can just put things you want people to study and know and learn. And if people have extra time, the manager can always say, hey, just go to the workshops process and study up on this or that, or watch this video, or do this or that. Once a process has been put in the public folder, it's just as easy to remove it. So if I go back here to this recruiting process that we put in there, which really shouldn't be in there unless every single person in the company does recruiting, which is unlikely, I'd select it and just unflip this flag. And this is as easy as that it's removed from the public folder. So let me spend just a few minutes talking here about the Message Center. So what the Message Center is about is it allows an internal communication system through TouchStone. So messages can be sent back and forth between users inside TouchStone. So I just click the new message button and I hit this little 2 and I can send messages to all the people, or I can enter an external email address and send the message. You can also give messages a flag, like this is a management request, I need a response to this, this is the announcement of a new process, this is the update of a particular process. You can put in the subject what the process is, you can even make a link to it right here, and then you send the message. So then this message announcement appears on the home screen for that user right here, and it also shows the flag. You can also take messages and move them into folders. So like if you're getting task assignments or managerial requests, you can take that particular message, and with this little icon you can move it into a folder related to that and then look at it later. It has an address book, so you can add external email addresses if you like. What you can't do is email can't come in from the outside into TouchStone. It can only go out from TouchStone and across inside of TouchStone to users. So the original thought behind the Message Center was that it gives a way to communicate about processes, about the implementation, the management, the use of processes specifically. Some people find this to be redundant because you've already got email. So it's a tool to use if you like. It is the same type of thing as a regular email system. The only difference is it's inside of TouchStone, so there's no spam, personal things. Everything's related to processes specifically. You can also use the Message Center for notifying managers of things that that employees have done in the control panel. So back to that vacation request idea, if someone filled out a vacation request form, then they could go to the Message Center and send a message saying, hey, I filled this out, could you go approve it? And theoretically, it could all happen inside of TouchStone. All right. So someone's just asking about the use of the importance of the Message Center. I would say, I'm going to just paraphrasing your question. I would say it is kind of redundant to email in a way because it does do the same thing. So if it adds another layer of complexity to something that's already working for your business, then maybe just don't use it. If you see it as a way to get people into TouchStone, using TouchStone more, and as an effective way to communicate about specific things, then use it. But again, if it's just another email system for you that that isn't going to help with communication, then don't use it. All right, let's talk about the process of the week in the few minutes that we have left. So what I chose to do today is focus around client service or customer service. There are key processes within client or customer service, and those two words are interchangeable. It just depends on your industry, whether you call it a client or you call it a customer. Every industry generally does different work inside of doing the business. So these three functions tend to be relatively consistent from industry to industry. In other words, all businesses kind of have similar needs and processes. And this is why the process libraries inside of these functions tend to be the most useful, because they're the most generic. When you get here, this is when things get specialized by industry. What one type of business does here in operations or doing the business is different than what another does. The thing that is consistent, though, is client or customer service. All businesses have customers of one form or another. And the customers are kind of the heart of your business. They're the reason that you're there. The customers and satisfying those customers keeps you in business or throws you out of business. All the processes within this whole function of doing the business are to support the customers. They're there to ensure that the customers get what they paid for on time, every time, exactly as promised. These people over here are making promises to your customers. They're making important promises that these people here have to fulfill on. Everyone else over here and here is in support of these two things, getting business in the door and servicing and delivering what you've sold to the customer. So it's important that what these people are selling is exactly what these people are delivering, right? It's essential. And throughout both of these functions, it's essential that the customer's well-being and their satisfaction is paramount. It's going to drive everything else. If you sell things here, you can sell things here all day long, and if people aren't happy with what they're getting here, then the business will fail. So one element or area that ties those two things together, the selling and the delivering, is what we call client or customer service. We have a process in the library called client satisfaction. The gist of it is you want to have a way of checking in with your customers to make sure that they're getting what they were promised, that they're happy with what they got. Whether it's a one-time transaction or a long-term engagement, client satisfaction is paramount. It influences everything. If you learn something that a client has experienced that wasn't good, you should then go back to your processes and figure out what caused that to happen. If you have a customer calling who's upset and angry about something, or just kind of generally not satisfied with what they bought, usually what businesses do is they go yell at a person. You salespeople, you oversold it. You delivery people, you didn't get it on time. You manufacturing people, you broke it before you sent it. No one called them back, so you're yelling at the person. That's bad management, in my opinion. You don't want to yell at the person. You want to figure out what caused that problem to happen, and then improve your process. Make it better, make it better, make it better. Go to those people and say, this is what happened. It's nobody's fault. Let's figure out how to make it better. Maybe we need to be retrained. Maybe we need to fix this hole. What generally also happens in business is nobody has time to do that. So you're just letting these problems float in and float out, and you don't care because you're so busy focused on the next customer that what happened to the last customer, you don't have time to deal with that. So what we're saying in this process is have a method that you figure out how customers are feeling about what you're doing. There's some statistics here. There's quite a few here. This is in the library process, so you can look at these in your own time. Basically, they're just statistics to kind of encourage you to do something about customer service. Price is not the main reason for customer churn. It's actually due to overall poor quality of service. What that means is price doesn't have anything to do with it. It's the quality of what you're delivering. A customer is 4 times more likely to defect to a competitor if the problem is service-related rather than price. What this is saying is don't focus. What this is really saying to me is you can charge more if you have better service. And I think that's true. Unless you're dealing with extremely busted value buyers who are always going to go to Walmart, then maybe not. But for the most part, it's not true. If you add a little more service, you can justify your higher price. The probability of selling to an existing customer is 60 to 70%. The probability of selling to a new prospect is 5 to 20%. People who are happy with their experience with you are going to buy more, and they're going to buy more often. For every customer complaint, there are 26 other unhappy customers who remained silent. We all know this is true. We do this in our everyday lives. Like you know, your biggest recourse is, I'm just not going to go back there. A lot of people don't have the energy to complain or say why, or they're not going to do that unless they're really pissed off, and then they're going to go on the internet and just bash you, or they're going to come in and make a scene. But most of those people just don't come back. 2% increase in customer retention is the same as decreasing costs by 10%. If you can retain 2% more, you've just decreased your costs by 10%. See, these are the things that aren't considered when we all get so busy and we're just going, doing what is in front of us. Think about that. 2% increase in customer retention, just 2%, has the same effect of decreasing overall cost by 10%. So this goes on and on. There's a few more here that you can read, but if this hasn't grabbed you by now, then I'll be surprised. So this is the case for customer service. So I think the first thing every business needs is something like this. And there's an example of this in the library. These are called customer service standards. These are examples. So get on the same page with everyone in your company. Make a list of the top 5 things that are just your rules for customer service, things you believe in, things that you're committed to. Think about the things that go wrong, and then make statements like this. This may be too many, but it's an example for you to kind of pull from. So we greet our customers with in a courteous and professional manner. We listen to every request and promptly take action on it. We have a system in place to do that. We inform our customers of the normal process time and also inform them if there are exceptions or delays. We don't wait for them to call us to say, hey, where's my stuff? We call them and say, for this reason, it's going to be this date. So think about your version of this and come up with your rules for customer service. Employees like this because then, it gives them meaning. It gives them, what is their mission in terms of the customers? So develop something like this. Then consider what process are you going to put in place to check in with your customers and see how they felt about the service. We all get customer surveys in the mail over the internet. This is a process for doing customer surveys. Here's a script around it. Here's a client survey example right here. You've probably all heard of SurveyMonkey. You can do those. What I think is really nice is when somebody takes the time to make a phone call. Say, hey, we just finished a project with you. How did it go from start to finish? How did you feel about it? And ask them. Talk to them about it. How did it go? They may or may not fill out a survey from you that you just casually email to them. But if you call, and depending on your type of business, you don't have to call every customer. Just make a concerted effort to call. Because if you think that it's worth the time, you think back to that statistic about how 2% more retention is going to equal 10% less expenses, that it's 75% easier to sell to an existing customer than it is to get a new one, that's costing you money. This is nothing. This is just a no-brainer. And in addition, if they make the phone call, they can ask for a referral. If the person says, yes, your service was awesome, you're great, I love your people, John was great, then say, I'm so glad you're happy. Can you recommend a friend? Who would you recommend? You can ask for a referral, which is fabulous, because then if you get a referral, that increases your conversion rate when someone tells someone. So think about developing a process like this. If surveys is the only way you can do it, then fine. Here's a survey process, and here's even examples. But think about a phone call. Think about what that would mean to the customer. There's another process called customer complaints or client complaints. This is in the library as well. If this is going, so well, your customer satisfaction, it's probably because you've got a good complaint resolution process. If you call a customer and they had an issue, this complaint, how to deal with the complaints, is going to make it, resolved and happen effectively for the client. So think about a process like this. This is just a sample work plan, a step-by-step, what they do. There's a form here to use. Basically, this is a way of documenting what the issue was and providing a solution to it. Empowering your employees to recognize when a customer isn't happy and do everything they can to make sure that customer is happy. Even if it's refunding them money to a certain degree, doing extra work to make them happy. Because remember, the 2% increase in customer satisfaction or retention increases your bottom line by 10%. Think about that when you're saying to yourself, we don't have enough money to make people happy. You do. So customer complaint process. I also threw this one in here, client intake, because a lot of issues for certain businesses go wrong here. If you can have a smooth intake from sales to operations, then that increases your client satisfaction. So I just want to say one more thing about client satisfaction, and it has to do with managing processes and having effective managers in place in your business, having managers who care. If your employees don't like you and they don't like their manager, they're not going to be nice to your customers. So think about that and let it sink in. Process documentation is about creating consistency, creating fairness, creating training, creating opportunity, creating efficiency and effectiveness of managers in a way that isn't personal, it isn't blaming, it isn't a rant. It's about how can we improve this overall so that we're all successful. So require your managers to work with their processes and learn them. Because if your employees don't like their manager, they don't like you, they're not going to be nice to your customers.